Well, hello and welcome to another new episode of Get to Know UIC, Get to Know United in Christ. Today, I am so excited to be joined by none other than Pastor Felicia, as she gives us a bit of a digital homecoming today to come and join with us. Pastor Felicia, thank you so much for coming and hanging out with us.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. This is wonderful.
Absolutely, this is a real blast. Now, Pastor Felicia, for folks who don't know, I mean, here's the thing. You're a known entity at United in Christ. Everybody knows Pastor Felicia. But there are some folks at United in Christ who weren't there during your time. Exactly.
Yeah.
So can you let folks know who you're related to there at United in Christ?
Who am I not related to? Isn't that the question? I'm kidding.
It really, the church really is just three big families. I know, and I know you're a part of that. But what's your connection to United in Christ, Pastor Felicia?
So I am the granddaughter of Melvin Baker and the daughter of Trudy and Bob. I almost said Baker. My dad. I don't know why. Trudy and Bob Swartz. So raised, baptized there, raised up in the church, lifelong member. So yeah, that's my story.
Absolutely. And now, well, obviously, I mean, the title gives way, but now, Pastor Felicia, you are serving your own congregation, and where are you serving now?
Yes. So I serve in the Allegheny Synod. I am in the town where I live is Grace Lutheran Church is a part of there. I live in the town Stoystown, Pennsylvania. It's about 4 miles away from where Flight 93 went down.
Oh, wow.
So I'm really close to the monument there. And then I serve Hooversville, which is about 10 minutes away from Stoystown at Trinity Lutheran Church, and they're a parish. So they're the Stony Creek Lutheran Parish.
Okay.
And so I'm about 10 miles away from Somerset, Pennsylvania. So that's like the closest kind of and then about 25 minutes from Johnstown.
Okay. There you go.
And about an hour from Altoona.
Yeah.
So kind of in the middle of the mountains.
You head west and you keep on heading, right?
Yeah. Probably not right now. You don't want to.
No. That was not a command for everyone listening at home. That was not instruction. That was
go anywhere. Stay at home.
Yes, please.
But yeah, so I mean, it's a beautiful place. A lot of mountains and stuff. Right across from my window is you see the wind turbines.
So neat.
Wind power out. Yeah, it's really nice. So
that's very, very cool.
Yeah.
But of course, I mean, as evidenced by your family and the history there, you were raised in this congregation. Mm-hmm. You were raised as a member of United in Christ, and I assume, or at least if your home congregation was anything like my home congregation, that community must have been formative over the years, right?
Oh yeah.
So I know that, again, you're a cradle Lutheran like I am. So for folks like us, it was just a given that this is the community we were a part of.
Right.
But ultimately, eventually, like in high school and in college, returning to that community became a choice at some point. So what was it for you over those years? What was it for you that made you want to keep coming back to United in Christ?
Well, first of all, as a child, it's I love my parents, but it wasn't an option not to come to church, right? Right. Dad would wake us up if we would try to sleep in. Dad would wake us up, maybe singing a song or playing the piano downstairs to wake us up.
Yes.
But so you came and my sister and I ended up always, we would be the acolytes or sometimes we were the only ones in Sunday school, things like that. So always, but I appreciate that now.
Sure, absolutely.
But I think, again, it's some of that. It's just, I mean, as a Lutheran, so much is that liturgical, that just something about it that you just fall in love with, I guess, that ritualistic kind of thing, which is a good thing. Going to college, I was a religion major, so had a chance to study many other, denominations. My advisor was a former Methodist pastor.
Okay.
And so, I had all those chances to look at other things, but I just never did because it was just, I mean, when I talked about being a Lutheran, okay, I'm a Lutheran. I mean, it makes sense. That's what I believe.
Yeah.
And I guess it was, not that, again, I had the opportunity to learn about other things, but it just never fit.
Sure.
And maybe that is part of being raised in the church. Maybe that's just a part of Lutheran theology and what it says to us, that it does bring us back. I know many people who have been non-Lutherans and they just felt moved by Lutheran theology. And so.
Totally. I mean, there's something liberating, right?
Definitely.
The Lutheran conviction of just saying, hey, I'm messed up. right? And I'm always going to be messed up.
Yep.
And yet the core value is that God is going to continue to look with me at me, at you, at us with a lens of love rather than the lens of,
exactly.
hey, you're really messed up, right? And that's a beautiful thing. And I think
it
speaks to our nature and who we are, and it resonates so deeply. At least it does with me, and that's why I appreciate it.
Yeah.
And as you kind of alluded to as well, as somebody who grew up in the church, and what I've heard from so many other members, the value of just returning to the same practices, right? Or rituals or traditions, not because they're old and stodgy, but because they give us order and they give us meaning and stability, right? To return to those things week after week. That's a real gift.
Yeah. Well, and as I keep always trying to tell people too, it's not like we just made these up. They follow this ancient tradition of the early church. And I think that says something that we, yes, you can go to a church and there's a lot of singing and maybe there's a sermon and that's it.
Yeah.
But to follow that ancient model that we're continuing along with what our forefathers did, and foremothers, while still doing new things that are along the lines that still follow that order, I think that's just beautiful.
Yeah.
I think that connects us with those who have gone before,
and I think that's so beautiful, like right now especially, right, because it's that which connects us even across time,
right?
Even as we're experiencing what feels like that isolation across space, right? And I think there's something to be said about the early church uniting around these practices when they themselves were isolated one from another, right? And so I mean, to find meaning in the midst of that's a real gift, and I'm glad that had resonated with you over your years in the church and in this congregation.
I mean, even so, like when I was in high school, after we had come back from the first youth gathering I went to in it was 2006.
Okay.
We started the youth services.
Yeah.
And so, this was the first attempt at a contemporary kind of worship that we had ever done.
Yeah.
And so, but we still, Pastor Katrina found these wonderful, liturgical things that were still liturgy, but it had a more modern and maybe more, the instrument, it was different, but it was still that liturgical. And I think that made the shift from, a different kind of worship, because it was still the same, but it was just a different take on it. And I think that's why it was so easily acceptable and resonated with us. And I appreciated that.
Yeah.
And so, I think that.
I think you're right, and I think that's a real gift of what our communities, when we're in person in particular, but even now too, I think that's a gift we have to offer, is that the order of worship and its structures are so stable that you can play with them in really creative ways, right? That are life-giving and worth celebrating, right?
So that first worship service, we did a conga line. I think it was like at the end, and everybody was just, there was a conga line. The first time we did a contemporary service, I vividly remember this. And we were going around the sanctuary.
Nobody's told me about a conga line. I know what we're doing when we get back.
I know, I remember it. And it was just like so uplifting that they were so accepting of us as youth coming there and doing that each month, letting us preach. I mean, it just, that to me, I think really helped me be where I am today, is that openness of the youth to be involved and to have a part of worship. Because it wasn't always that way,
Sure.
I remember when I was younger and that was just the way things were, there was some resistance to that, but I think as time went on, it helped open up those opportunities. So.
Absolutely. And I think that's one of the gifts of this community, is their willingness to experiment and trust and empower others to try new things, right? So for you, growing up in that congregation and growing up in that system, where were those moments for you where you really caught on to the glimpses of God at work through this congregation and through this community? Where did you see those moments kind of shining bright, and hopefully what I imagine is what helped form you to take that on as the challenge and the task of, I want to be a part of this, right?
Well, I mean, one big thing for me was, and I know this isn't the opportunity that everybody has, is having family there. Especially my grandfather, as everybody knows, he was that kind of formative, voice of faith. And so to be with family, and then not just that, when I was younger, there was quite a few kids. And so we had that group where we could, have education together. We did pageants, Christmas pageants, all that kind of stuff. And even as a kid, having that was helpful. Having great teachers and things like that was wonderful. And I think that was formative. But then I would say probably the biggest thing was the first youth gathering we went to.
Cool.
In San Antonio. I mean, being surrounded by 25,000, kids worshiping together. I mean, that was just an amazing experience.
Wild. It's just wild.
I mean, So, I think that was kind of one of the biggest things that for me that helped. I mean, it had already been going along, I had always had all those opportunities to worship and do all these things together. But I think that was kind of the big, like, it kind of made it all come together.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, just those things as a child, we talk about education and things like that, but it's so important for children, and it doesn't have to be that, it's so strict. I mean, it doesn't have to be, letting kids just learn. I mean, kids are smart,
right.
And letting it be open and having that. And I think that really helped, especially, I don't know if you've met her, Belinda Dreisbach.
I know of
Belinda, she was the one. I mean, she taught all of us, all the youth. And so her teaching of us really helped. And again, it wasn't like it was like super like, okay, sit down, you can't ask questions. Sure. It was very that open. Yeah. And I think that really helped.
Cool. That's very, very cool.
Yeah. I mean, I think all of that.
That's neat. So as you look back on those that formative time and those things that really kind of motivated you at the time, I know that we often joked through seminary that seminary had a way of taking the Jesus you loved and stealing him away and then replacing him later and building Jesus back up. I don't know if that felt true for you.
Actually, no.
Okay, good. Good.
But that was because in college, I was a religion major, and my advisor, former Methodist pastor.
Sure.
A lot of the stuff, when I remember when I walked into my first, I think it was Old Testament. They're like, okay. We're going to bar the door so you can't run out because they're going to tell you all this stuff, and you're like, what? No, right. I had already had that.
Good.
So I wasn't like, oh my gosh, what? You're telling me this might not have happened in the way it happened? Now, I remember my parents that the first time, and they were like, what are they
That's when you had to bar the door.
That's when I had to bar the door.
Yeah, right.
But yeah, so for seminary, it didn't do that too much for me. But again, that's not the experience everybody has.
Sure. But I also know that, like, and again, if your experience has been like mine, like seminary tries to form you to be a pastor for a very particular way and a very particular style. But I know that there are still those parts of me that like hang on to my home congregation's modus operandi, right? Like there's still those little parts for my home congregation's New Life. There are still little New Life parts of me that come out. So are there parts from United in Christ that you can see just like showing their face in your ministry now in Allegheny Synod? Are there parts of that you just kind of kept with you through seminary and are influencing your ministry now?
I think some of the bigger ones are like I said, when you were a kid, it was a little different. I would say UIC definitely had a shift. As I'm sure a lot of people, have recognized that, where it was, things had to be done a certain way, and as a kid, that was really tense. So now I try to teach kids, I don't care, my philosophy is I don't care how we don't have really any children, but I tell adults too, I don't care how you light the candles, just don't burn anything down.
Yes.
But I think as we got UIC as a, like I said, as it shifted, especially when I was a teenager, that openness and willingness to try new things. Yeah. I have tried to, to me, I see UIC as a great example of a healthy congregation who is willing to try stuff and understands that, it doesn't mean the church isn't being, nothing's wrong, but to try new things can be uplifting. Absolutely. And so I've tried to help that inform my current ministry. Yeah. And I find that was very helpful, I grew up in that shift and was able to see the positives of how that can work out.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's one of the common themes we're hearing across this is this community's willingness to step out and just say, hey, we don't know if this is going to work, but we're going to be faithful and we're going to experiment and we're going to see what sticks, right? And if
and not every congregation is like that. I mean, there's quite a few that aren't. And it's not that that's just the way they are. Right. And so for UIC to be able to be an example of what it can look like in life-giving ministry, I think that's a wonderful gift.
Yeah. And to over the years just internalize there is no one right way, right?
That's the other thing. What works for one congregation is not going to work for another congregation too. I think that's important to note. People say, well, this congregation's doing this. And I said, yeah, but it's just, like I said, things are different and you have to find what works for you. And that's what I tell people. There's a lot of experimentation. I'm sure there's some stuff we tried at UIC that did not work.
Oh, for sure. Oh,
yeah. And so I was at an adaptive leadership thing last month. And the thing was, you throw the spaghetti against the wall and you see what sticks. Not everything's going to stick. And that's okay. Failure is not a bad thing.
No, not at all.
Sometimes you have to do that, and that's just the way it is.
That's right. So. I gotta laugh though, because this is a connection with your family. I remember the first couple Sundays. I'll call him out. He can come yell at me later. But I remember the first couple. Sundays. I always
tell him I'm gonna call him out.
The first couple Sundays that I was at United in Christ, your dad Bob was the assisting minister at least a couple of those days, and I can remember before service him asking me like, "How do I want the table set? How do I want the thing set up for communion?"
Oh yeah.
And I think I looked at him and I said, "Bob, so long as there's bread and wine on the table, I'm fine." Right? Like
Right. But that's that that idea that has to be the right way that's so ingrained in a lot of parishioners. And I try to tell people that it doesn't
and there's value in appreciating it, but ultimately,
I mean, it should be done. I mean, I want things to be done well. I want the bread and wine to be there, but there's not. As I said, there's not a right or wrong.
That's right. So to Bob and all the other assisting ministers out there, here, this is a word of liberation. So long as there's wine and bread on the table, we're fine.
And sometimes they want to hear it. It's a certain way. So then I let them, do that. That's fine. Because so the congregation I work at, Grace, they add water to the wine.
Oh, yes. There you go.
And I think that's a tradition out of there's a Catholic, there's some, and I think it was an old pastor that did that.
Yeah.
I personally don't see any need for it liturgically or theologically,
but if it's what helps centers them,
exactly.
Right?
So I let them do that and don't, and so to me it's fine. If they, so like the candles, a lot of people say, well, how do you want me to light them? I say, I don't care, but they really want to know. So I tell them, okay, do right to left, right? To me, it doesn't matter, but if it helps you, that's fine. Because I understand. I sometimes when I want instructions on how to do something, I want to know what people want. So again, it's fine.
That's great. It is. It's just, in the end, it's fine.
It's fine. I said, just don't burn the church down and we're good to go. It's okay.
Never mind. So looking back then, or looking ahead, I don't know. Because I mean, it's great. I love when you still come to visit with us and you get to serve with us. It's beautiful. But
I was going to come, but now we're stuck.
I know. Well, maybe, hey, I need a guest digital preacher if you're offering.
I think that's a good idea. I told my friend, I have two pastor friends. Right now, one is in between calls and the other one is working at a nursing home. And I had said to him, I said, are you bored? Do you want to record a sermon? He's like, yeah, I really would do that. And I was like, no, I might get in trouble with it. Because I mean, people want us to see us preaching. But yeah.
I think that'd be fun. I think that could be a fun thing.
Videos,
That's what I'm saying. But as you think about that,
that Holy Week, then I don't have to. I can use the sermons I use.
There you go. Reduce, reuse, recycle. That's what we got to do. But what have been your own hopes and dreams for your home congregation? What is it that you have hoped for, even as you went through seminary and now beyond? What have you hoped for them? I
mean, truthfully, I've seen them kind of reach some of my hopes and dreams.
Cool.
Like I said, for quite a few years there, we were kind of in this, slump, which many congregations hit.
Yeah.
But there was this openness, this willingness to try do these things, and they are, meeting those expectations and going beyond. I to see so many people welcomed into the church, no matter who they are.
Yeah.
People of, the LGBT community, other things. I think that is the most beautiful thing I've seen.
Cool.
And that openness, that willingness to accept people and all this stuff. Especially education, is another great thing. I know a lot of times it's hard to get people to come out for that, but I've heard you've had great, strides and people participating and all this stuff. So it's just, again, they've already met a lot of those. And I'm so proud of all of that.
I'm glad.
And so, I mean, for them to just continue to doing all they do, so many wonderful things.
Cool. And I hope that pride is very much a mutual thing. This is a congregation who is proud of the fact that they've had a role in forming another pastor for this church. Yeah. And so thank you for heeding that call as well. Although
I watched your video the other day of Pastor Shade about PhD candidates, and I watched it and I was like, nope, not right now.
Okay,
right
neither
now.
of us. Okay, packed. Well, this will be a digital pinky promise.
Pinky promise, Not right now. No. I thought about it, but not right now. I don't know if I could go back to school right now. I can't sit still.
Thank you.
But that's what I thought of that, because I was like,
no, I'm not for that right now. No, but there are far more pressing things at the moment, I think. True. Yeah. But so now, as we're wrapping up, is there anything you want to be able to leave the congregation with? Is there anything you'd like to say to them? Any Pastor Felicia pearls of wisdom, or anything that you wish I would have asked that you would have preferred to answer to the questions I actually asked you? This is your chance.
I mean, I would say just continue. I mean, they've continued to do what they're doing, which again, I'm so proud. It's wonderful to see. I think they are a great beacon of hope for not only the community, the synod, all those wonderful things, and to just keep being willing to try things and experiment and I mean, like I said, they have had so many wonderful things, and again, some of that is trusting in the leadership. So we had talked a little bit about those who have come before. So trusting Pastor Katrina, wonderful, helped me. Like I said, I'm where I am for one of the reasons because of her.
Yeah.
Her encouraging, her willingness to be open, her willingness to just listen to people.
Sure.
And then Pastor Shade, willingness to try many different things and be open.
Absolutely.
And then you as well, to continue in that, a willingness to go along with many different new things.
I'm along for the ride.
Yeah. And I mean, it's just been great. I mean, I think that openness to leadership, to not just leading, but to walking along with the pastor, to allow them to shepherd them. What is it? We talk about they're not the captain of the ship, but they're, helping you grow and things like that and leading you. But I see UIC as being a church where the congregation members know that it's their job, but their ministry and their call
exactly
to do that. And I think that's great, instead of just relying on, the pastor to be in charge of everything. They are willing to take the reins. And that is beautiful.
Exactly.
That is what the church is. And so I think that they just continue doing what they're doing, and I'm really proud of them, and I'm proud to have been a part of it.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Thank you.
I mean, like I said, I wouldn't be where I am today without many of the people there.
Yeah.
Without, the church itself, even if I was forced to, come to Sunday school and forced to, I told this story in my sermon one time about, we did a Christmas pageant one year and I was Mary, and they made my cousin Jordan Joseph. And as a child,
there's nothing more traumatic.
So your cousin is it's just a bad idea. Maybe they did that back then, but to do that in a play, it was just traumatic. But to be able to experience those things as the child in the church, all those different formative events.
Absolutely.
That's why I am where I am today.
That's very cool. That's very cool. So United Christ, keep it up. See if we can keep the trend going. This is wonderful. Yeah. Thank you. Yeah. Thank you so much for taking the time and tuning in with us. This was a blast. And who knows, maybe we'll see sooner rather than later. We'll see what we can do about a little digital pulpit swap or something. We'll make that work. Yeah. But in the meantime, everyone at home, please continue to stay safe and stay healthy. Again, Pastor Felicia, thank you so much. This was really, really wonderful.
Yeah, no problem. Thank you. I appreciate it.
Absolutely. Yeah. All right. God's continued peace and blessings in the days ahead. And we'll see you hopefully sooner rather than later.
Yeah.
Bye for now.
Bye.